All right, welcome to Crypto Zombies.
Woohoo!
We're in the house here. We've got Brain, we've got Chris, and Human, and today Jeff Turner, who's a distinguished technologist.
Well, before we bring Jeff on, I just want to let you know we have a sponsor today. It's brought to us by Stone AI. Visit Stone AI Studios to see how they're revolutionizing storytelling with AI-powered innovation and complete IP protection. Huge thank you to Nimbus Media for building their website. Check them out at nimbusmedia.io. Nice. And thank you, David Layton, because
David, you're the man.
It's because of you that we got Jeff Turner. And welcome, Jeff Turner.
Woo! Oh, hi.
Well, Jeff, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I'm a longtime technologist, born in California, raised in Silicon Valley. I now live in Southern California. Worked for a variety of tech companies, mostly in the Fortune 500 space, Cisco Systems, Novell, Hewlett Packard back in the day. And then I went off and did my own startup. Well, after I was working for Cisco, after coming to a discovery around basically what's known as fractal internet traffic, how to tame it, and how to, if you will, create diamond lanes, truck lanes, and best effort lanes on the internet. That startup failed. A lot of people know the story behind what happened with net neutrality and the regulatory situation. Anyway, then I went on that startup actually put me on the blockchain path because we were trying to figure out how to solve the double spend problem while I was there. We were basically using a decentralized tech approach to figuring out how to do settlement for premium bandwidth on the internet. So I got to know some of the early Bitcoiners back in the day, the people that worked on the technology, didn't realize that there was something Bitcoin coming around the corner. And I was a little late to the party because I don't think I discovered it until 2011 or so.
Yeah, can we talk about that real quick?
Sure.
What was your aha moment that made you realize Bitcoin was the way to go in 2011?
Well, before that, we had been trying to figure out how to solve the Chaumian cache problem, which is directly related to what's known as Nakamoto consensus. Because what we wanted to do was to create a decentralized system for internet service providers to offer, if you will, truck lanes and diamond lanes on their last mile portion of the network, and then create a premium streaming service. This was all before even Netflix was there or YouTube was there. The company was started in 2001, 2002. And anyway, so the settlement model that we were working toward, we wanted to find a way to do what essentially is Nakamoto consensus today, what's done with Bitcoin. And I had worked at a company called Novell back in the 90s, where I was there right before Eric came in. I was there with a guy named Bob Frankenberg and Ray Norda before that. And anyway, the period right before Bob came in, we had on the table a plan to buy Cisco Systems and work with Intel and a company called Compact to actually create routers and switches that would be commodity hardware running Novell NetWare as the operating system for those things. And the view back then was that software and hardware were fundamentally different approaches, and you need different approaches to the business models. Well, there was this little problem that was found in 92, 93 by AT&T Bell Labs, that internet traffic was fractal. So you could put in traffic A and traffic B, but they would not linearly add together. They'd be chaotic and have unpredictable outputs. And so anyway, we had a way to fix that, which would have greatly simplified what's known as quality of service. And that's when I did the startup company, and I was the company was called Interstream. And we basically were working to band together Hollywood studios with the ISPs to create the next generation internet TV system. And we had gotten into all the guys that had done the DVD forum and such. Anyway, there was significant political action that happened. At one point, I had a guy I thought that was going to work with us, and he turned us down after Al Gore approached him at a DNC fund or a Democratic, it was a Democratic National Committee fundraiser in Hollywood, and said, "You will not work with Interstream." So it got very political very quick.
Shots fired is right. What are your thoughts on? Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
please, Nick.
just real quickly, because your philosophy about the fractal the fractal traffic and packets is it's fascinating to me. When I look at the internet, it's like it was originally the Wild West, much like Bitcoin, right? So
Yeah.
if treating every packet equally, you say it's kind of like communism. I don't know. Doesn't it on some point it gives everybody a fair shake? So that it's not like a pay to play thing.
Yeah,
Or
just to give everybody context on that, that was something we talked about briefly before the call, and that was my soundbite, if you will, back in the day with the net neutrality stuff, because we wound up raising $4 million for the startup, and well over half of that was spent in DC working on lobbying work versus getting the technology together, which by the way was a mistake that I think I made. We should have focused on developing markets and getting outside of the Western world altogether and not worrying about the politics with Google and such. But yeah, the challenge I have with that notion that you have to treat every packet equally is I think every packet should be treated the way the app wants it to be treated. In other words, if you have a trading application, so I'll call it your high frequency trading crypto application, that should have very low latency service so you can do much more effective trades. And then if you're got something like a download that's occurring, then what you should do is let that be put into the background and get the truckling. Sorry, I got a beetle.
I was gonna say, we got
Yeah, a lot of action
you're
going
getting
on
buzzed.
over there.
These scarabs come out here all the time. Anyway, so in my mind, you want to have the traffic treated the way that the application needs it to be handled.
Got it.
Otherwise, it's like this DEI stuff that's going on, where we worry about equality rather than providing equal opportunity.
Let's talk about what happened with your startup failing. Your startup failed because there were certain things that were happening politically with the laws and stuff. Tell us what happened. Why did your startup fail?
Well, I think the startup failed ultimately. I think Interstream failed simply because I was too naive about the way the world really works, especially when it comes to DC. When I was growing up in Silicon Valley, there was a much more libertarian ethos. A lot of the tech people ignored Washington, D.C. altogether. And that fundamentally changed in the early 2000s. There was much more activity going on inside the Valley, from what I could tell, around getting political favor and doing regulatory capture in D.C.
Well, what about
the
net neutrality stuff? That's
on the net neutrality stuff specifically. There was very active work through rulemaking, like with the FCC, that would bar people from using premium services. Now, part of this, I believe, was a failure with the likes of the big ISPs like AT&T, because they started talking about how they were going to get in and take a percentage of all revenue for the content flowing over the internet, and rather than making that part really neutral. So that was a mistake. And to be frank, at this point in my life, I'm kind of thankful that the startup failed, because it might have gone the wrong direction, politically speaking, in that maybe we would have had these agreements between the big Hollywood providers and the ISPs that allowed only the big Hollywood content to get the diamond lane. Yeah. When we needed more egalitarian access. That was always a danger, but in our system, we had defined it in such a way, because we were basically early in using the blockchain style tech to do it. We were going to ensure that there was egalitarian access through the consensus models and such.
Hey, Jeff, Chris, do you have something you want to say about that?
I mean, I think that the development of a system that allows people, equal access for the needs that they have is a critical one for you get content to people, and but you don't want to prefer incumbents over challengers in those circumstances, and the competition policy is rife with this. As a recovering antitrust lawyer, I watched this very, very, very carefully throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, and it's just this was well, there were immense political battles over all of this that we launched. I represented Netscape against Microsoft in the antitrust trial, which is how I know Eric Schmidt, from his Novell days, and Eric was obviously very active in that. There were quite a number of interesting positions taken by people and people who like to stay out of it. Like you, I grew up in Silicon Valley, and I remember this libertarian ethos. It waxes and wanes, and right now, obviously, we have a number of folks who are very engaged with the Trump administration. We'll see how that turns out.
Do you?
I mean, when I go back to the 90s. I think part of this, because I was at Novell, and Ray Norda and team were really going after Bill Gates at the time with various antitrust action, especially around Windows. I mean, we had some horrible things go on with us at Novell, where they were like, I remember Dell Computer was forced to bundle its operating systems with the hardware, and we couldn't get our Unix or Linux or any of our MS-DOS alternatives in on that hardware. Because of the agreements that had been written.
But
so
they were paying for it no matter what, not whether or not.
Exactly.
Wow, look at
Gates maybe had a few brushes with loyalty, because obviously him and Jobs historically had clashed, because Jobs first had the GUI, the mouse, and then he ended up and that kind of dissolved.
Well, and there was a regular meeting with Scott McNealy, Steve Jobs, Ray Norda, Larry Ellison, where they basically got together. I think it was once a quarter or something like that, to specifically review these kinds of issues. So there was not open competition back in the day.
Well, my group at Wilson Sonsini ended up representing them pretty extensively with the government, talking to the government on their behalf.
Larry was on our board at Novell. I used to help manage the board meetings. So,
well, this has been an incredible trip down memory lane. But let's come to 2025. Let's talk about
crypto.
Let's go back to crypto. What do you think of this Genius Act? Do you agree with all of it?
How's it affecting the capital markets, would you say?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, well, I think I'm trying to understand how significant the Treasury demand is going to be as a result of this. Scott Bessent came out and said that I think it was something like 3.3 trillion in additional demand is going to go toward Treasuries. And there's a lot of concern around the BRICS and them setting up an alternative fiat system. To me, they're trying to thread a needle, and it's risky, but it's probably a risk worth taking, because we might see the dollar really go through a very rapid decline otherwise. I think the dollar index is down to 98 or something like that right now. That's a significant fall. But if we see the fiat currency system start to undergo a significant change and takedown, if you will, I still expect, because of things like this, that this act will, keep the dollar much stronger as a result. So, in some ways, I think it's really brilliant, and it's indicative of what a significant change the Trump administration has put in place versus, say, what Biden was doing and people like Gensler were attempting to do with the previous.
Think about Gensler. Let's see your thoughts on Gensler.
I think I already shared my thoughts, but I think he's a real piece of work. I'll put it that way. My big issue there is, it's pretty obvious to me. I mean, you can track like Nick Carter on Twitter. It's pretty obvious to me that between Michael Barr and Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler, they were just trying to suppress crypto. And I think the similar things were going on with regard to AI. They wanted to create an oligopoly of AI companies back during that period, and I think it's much better that we've got we'll have a much more free and open system. I'm thankful to see people like David Sachs in there.
Chris, what are your thoughts on what Jeff just had to say?
Look, open competition is always a better system. I mean, ultimately having you have to have some guidelines around it. There have to be rules to that competition, but having a robust, wide open ability for people to found companies and get them reasonably well capitalized and started, the battle should be in the marketplace, not in government.
What are the exceptions there? would you say?
I think that there are, this is where the Biden people thought that there should be exceptions for AI and crypto because they're potentially transformative technologies. I think that there was over worry about AI systems and thus over regulation. The possibility, it's the Terminator scenario. It's Skynet is the thing that ultimately people talk about in the AI context. The machines are going to realize that we're superfluous and take us over and start killing people. The likelihood of that is pretty darn low at the end of the day. But you have to watch for it. You have to think that there might be situations where if too much is handed over to AI, it might do things that are anti-humanity. And this has been written about in science fiction for 100 years. And that there are things that you do that constrain that. There are rules for Isaac Asimov and iRobot, for like all of these different things that you think about writing into code, and you make sure that there are checks and balances in those systems. Crypto is much the same way, and all currency systems have a notation of something that they harken back to. For Bitcoin and for other cryptos, it's consensus of the network and decentralized systems, and that's a very powerful thing that is changing our world well. But it's true of fiat currencies too, whether they were based on the gold standard or just based on the power of the Federal Reserve system. Like these are also ultimately harkening back to a system that people accept as the source of truth.
So what Jeff was saying about threading the needle, do you agree with that?
He's expressing a worry that the BRICS will be able to put up a basket of these currencies that could replace the dollar as a reserve currency. I think that's possible, but I think that it's highly likely that the dollarization and the existing of dollars as stable coins in crypto, whether it's USDT, everything else is coming out, Ripple trying to do one. I think every bank is going to try to do their own US dollar stable coin. And that's what Besant's talking about in the $3.3 trillion worth of treasury demands, because the general requirement, and this is followed pretty much under the Genius Act, is that you have a 1-to-1. You always have to be able to redeem for treasuries, for dollars, real dollars, the dollar stable coins that you've created.
Well, we've mentioned stable coins a few times. Can someone make the definition of stable coins really, really simple for the person tuning into this show for the first time? What is a stable coin?
I mean, it's a crypto coin that's pegged to the value of a fiat currency.
It's like a bridge between the old and the new.
Yeah. So US dollars are the most common. There are euro stable coins, there are yuan stable coins, there are all sorts of the peso stable coins, even, although I think that those are teeny in terms of their market cap. But the biggest ones by market cap are Tether, USDT, US dollar stable coin, and Circle's USDC. But there was another one called Luna that was algorithm based, and that blew up. It depegged, and all these things sort of go away. And that's one of the biggest learnings in crypto, is how you have to kind of hew to having these treasury backed approaches if dollars are what you're basing things on.
One thing to add to that is I feel like an inherent flaw in working with the BRICS is like you theoretically have to work with these people, and a lot of them are totalitarian dictatorships. So, like, for example, if you're going to be able to trust Brazil, Russia, India, China, I mean, doesn't that kind of give another vote of confidence for working with for the dollar hegemony?
Yes.
And also if you look at oil reserves are dollar denominated. It's all sold in US dollars right now, which is another sort of full system through which the dollar maintains its hegemony. The BRICS don't like the fact that it makes the U.S. more powerful. That's why they've been fighting against it for years. But as Americans, we should be generally comfortable with this.
And not to mention inflation's been happening for like 50 years, so it feels more like a feature, not a bug. I mean, what do you think about this, Jeff?
Well, yeah, just to add to that, if you look at something like Tether, it's got like $160 billion in reserves. It's more profitable than Goldman Sachs. It's the most profitable company per capita I think it brings in something like $50 million per employee there. So and it's an incredible venture. I have a friend who's got a wife from Venezuela, and literally what they do down in Venezuela when they want to go buy something, say at a convenience store, they walk in with their Binance app, and then they take Tether from their Binance app and transfer it to the store owner's Binance app.
Yep.
So
Wow.
that's what's we're looking to see with the the re-dollarization of the world. And then if you look at things like the sanctions that went on with Russia and the SWIFT system or with Iran, the SWIFT system, which is the transfer system that works between the major banks, that could get dollarized this way, because you can imagine Amazon or Walmart producing stable coins and then them paying their entire supply chain all the way to, say, India or China in those stable coins, or you and I carrying these stable coins around on our phone that are issued from those types of entities. So I think it's a really powerful notion, and that's why I don't expect the dollar to go away anytime soon. But maybe it will eat away at the SWIFT system.
It is
I
also
agree.
kind of interesting that, like, if you look at having technological supremacy leads to economic supremacy, leads to military supremacy. So this is kind of like a good long-term strategy for the U.S., I'd say.
You guys agree?
I think that economic power is ultimately political power.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Jeff. Now that this Genius Act has been passed, and you like Scott and everything that's going on right now, what would you like to see happen next? Because I do want to talk to you about blockchain, because you have worked with Alchemy, and we talked about this. And tell me your thoughts on Alchemy and who you're working with blockchain wise right now.
Okay. So I'm Chief Product and Technology Officer for a company called Firefly, which is basically a set of intrinsics that are part of a what shall I say? It's similar to what you would have seen with Cosmos or Polkadot, but it takes all the underlying layers and breaks them apart, so that other people can come along and pick this up. I can't mention the customers that it has currently, but we're out going for a Series A round right now with that group.
Yep.
The work that we want to do in that place is to actually create better systems like Alchemy or Morales or Graph, etc. I've used those previously when we were working on some NFT projects a few years ago, written a lot of code around that space. But these ultimately are what's known as an oracle in the crypto world. And they provide data about what's the state of the current blockchain for various systems. And I think we need better cross-chain systems, because one of the other things I work on is an open source project called Smart Assets. And this is all about using that underlying technology to basically create a package around crypto assets. In my view, the ICO model is kind of broken and antiquated, because you go out, you launch a token, you raise a bunch of capital for it. And then what in turn happens is there's billions raised or hundreds of millions raised. Much of it gets squandered. And I think one of our biggest problems in the whole capitalist space right now is misallocation of capital. It's been going on for years. And that's because we have the wrong capital structure and the wrong capital allocation mechanisms that have been put in place. We've had this crowdsourced type of capital, going back to things like Indiegogo and the Ethereum ICO launch, but they're not really very efficiently done, because the capital structure is just not quite correct. So if we can create much more granular capital allocation, and where you're putting in 50K or 100K rather than many, many millions, and then you focus on really making sure that that capital is well managed, I think that's a much better way to go, and that's what Smart Assets is about. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a fascinating way to approach it, and I think that obviously we need more efficient systems over time. I mean, Alchemy is designed to be the ability to have your nodes managed and information grabbed from the nodes effectively, so that that application layer can be simple as possible. The demand for that is immense online in general. When Alchemy was founded, by and large in this basement that we sit in right now.
Legendary location.
As Nikhil pivoted from down to lunch, and we did a bunch of meetings down here. It was how do you build this Amazon Web Services type layer for blockchain companies, and obviously they've executed extraordinarily well. I'm sort of proud to be still super involved with those guys, and the space has been built out in a number of wonderful ways.
So if you wanted Alchemy to do one thing that they're not doing right now, what would that be, Jeff?
Provide this is very technical, but provide Byzantine fault tolerant cross-chain support.
Okay, got it.
In other words, really get it very make sure it's fully decentralized. And I think we're living in a world of many chains. Despite I'm wearing my Bitcoin shirt on today, but I tend to be more of a Bitcoin maxi. But still, I think that Ethereum and Solana and all the others are going to be around, especially with now the regulatory clarity coming in.
So let's just say that in a matter of days to weeks, I may be involved in a treasury company, and we're not just going to do Bitcoin, but we're big believers in Bitcoin.
This is a giant announcement, everyone. What would you like to tell us about
There's
this?
nothing
Chris?
more that I have to say at this point, but
Jeff,
we're in some interesting advanced stages about the way that this is going to work.
Jeff, you want to be involved with whatever he just said?
Absolutely, I think that's part of the trend. I think that multi-coin treasuries are going to become big.
I agree.
Not just Bitcoin.
Oh, your buddy's back. Do you see Do you see yourself doing something in the treasury space as well?
Okay, so the current clients of smart assets, there is a Bitcoin native gold token that's coming out on smart assets. There's actually, it looks like a couple of those that are going to be coming out. There's also a data spigot that's coming out that will allow you to control the flow of data, say, coming out for training LLMs or AI models. Those are the for the most significant smart assets that are being worked on now. I think in the treasury space, ultimately what I'd like to do is see these things traded peer to peer, because I should be able to buy a portion of a crypto or as I call it, a smart asset, which is basically just some crypto wrapped in AI and some smart contracts that can be transferred between parties. So I should be able to buy that and maybe buy a piece of the treasury that you're working on, or the treasury management system you're working on.
Yep.
Will you do that for him, Chris?
Sure. I mean, look,
All right.
there's going to be a lot of protocols through which these things are traded, and automated market makers are, in their early stages. Uniswap is the dominant one right now, but I think that'll change over time too.
Well, Nick, do you wanna wrap it up? Do you wanna tell us what you're currently working on here, Jeff? And
I'd love to hear more from Jeff, but just maybe a quick insight into how the market's going a little crazy today. We lost 5%, but it's up and down. It's 4 trillion.
5% is not that much.
It's Apple and gold independently. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I have to go back. I used to be CTO at a company called Exodus, if you know the Exodus wallet.
I do know the Exodus.
I remember my first paycheck, I think Bitcoin was at $60K, and it went down to 30 in the next week. So you got to be really careful. I want to see less volatility in the markets. I don't have really comments on today. I haven't tracked it today at all. But I mean, that's the nature of these things. And if we can introduce stability into them, one of the things like these guys are working on with the smart assets is to put gold backing, which is probably the most stable asset you can hold. And that, I think that will help reduce that volatility. And, the really cool thing is with all the AI services that are coming into play, I think what we're going to see is automatically managed assets. So I think we can imagine a future where, your typical millennial today uses something like Robinhood, but the Gen Z, I think, is going to have something is a full-blown AI where they just drop in their assets into the app and then put a slider on there on how much risk and reward they want to take as a result. So that to me is the vision for the future, and that's where we need to get to.
I absolutely think that's right.
So folks wanted to learn a little bit more about smart assets. Where could they go? What tell us about that?
Yeah, just www.smart-assets.io. And then for Firefly, it's f1r3fly.com. And I do that about halftime. And then I also have been involved with a crypto pack this past year. So you can catch some of the work I've done there on YouTube. What's
Which
that?
one? Which crypto pack?
It was called, we called it crypto for US.
Okay.
Then it got transformed. I got a long story there, but it'd be too boring for this group right now. But anyway,
Sure.
we transformed it to something called Americans for Sovereign Tech.
Okay.
With the vision to basically make decentralized technology part and parcel of our everyday lives, and make a better world through getting rid of a lot of this creepy technology that we seem to be dominated by. Anyway, that one is still underway. It's being funded, and it's in kind of limbo right now, but I'm going to continue on with that as soon as we get some other monies raised.
Very cool.
I did have a quick question for Jeff and Chris about this. So if we can apply, and it just triggered me thinking about smart contracts that you mentioned. If we can implement smart contracts within the political landscape, do you think that could drive a lot of efficiency and get rid of a lot of like pork barrel legislation? And
Potentially, but I actually don't think you'll see legislatures, authorize smart contracts to implement their spending priorities. I think you'll see a lot more like the chaos that we have today, because that's how the system works. And
Right.
I think we definitely could have a smart contract based system, and that would probably be excellent and save people a lot of money. But that's the fights are where a lot of the action in politics is, and so I think that.
Right.
it's wishful thinking. You're saying,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do think there's an opportunity with AI and smart contracts to automate a lot of the enforcement or compliance with like the Federal Election Committee, the FEC.
Yes.
So to me, that's a low hanging fruit.
Gotcha.
Well, listen, Jeff, another fascinating
This was excellent.
conversation.
Thank you.
Nick, you happy?
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, this was great.
We're going
conversation.
strong here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again to
right.
StoneAIstudios.com, and everyone check them out and nimbusmedia.io. Jeff, we wish you nothing but the best. Nick, you want to take us out?
I guess for more of the delicious brains and blockchain, check us out, SiliconZombies.com. Until Thursday.
Until Thursday, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me.